Are we live or no?
I think we are live right now. So, hey everybody. I'm here with my friends again. And also sorry. So do you want to introduce yourself again? Do you want to?
Sure. Yes, I can introduce myself. My name's Alice Dee, and I'm a pioneering vegan chef, restaurateur, and author. And my work, I think we're here today to talk about my work as a restaurateur that has, in a significant way, shaped two major plant-based movements. I founded one of the earliest raw vegan restaurants in the United States, and this helped spark a global wave of interest in living foods that continues to the present day. We have a Facebook group that has over 50,000 members associated with the recipe book that the restaurant spawned. And later, I opened a vegan cafe in Mexico that was also one of the first vegan restaurants in Mexico, and it played a meaningful role in the country's rapidly growing plant-based community that now accounts for 9% of the Mexican population, one of the largest percentage populations in the world.
9%?
I'm the author of 2 recipe books drawn from my restaurant experience. What's that? What's that?
You were saying 9%? Not right now?
9%.
Oh, that's 9% nice.
Of the Mexican population. So it's a huge movement down in Mexico. So my 2 recipe books are called Raw Vegan Recipes and Mexican Vegan Cuisine. And today we're going to be talking about my journey as a chef and vegan restaurateur and the cultural impact of my restaurants and the lessons and you might hear my dogs in the background because they want to say hi too.
Yeah, the dogs like to say hi. They're really sociable.
They like to say hi, yes. This is Chance and Eve are having fun playing behind me, so. So that's not me going roar, roar, roar.
No, that is not her. That is her dogs.
So we can talk about the vegan dogs and cats book also.
Yeah, if we want to be really controversial, so.
Really controversial, yes. That would be fun.
So
I thought you might have some questions for me.
Yeah, the first one is, what inspired you to open your first restaurant, and why roll vegan restaurants and why unroll vegan restaurants in the United States?
Well, okay, that's a very interesting question. I mean, I guess the first inspiration was I met a person who, after well, first of all, someone came to visit me when I lived in the Bay Area, and he brought with him a book called The Healing Godspell of St. John. And this was a translation of an Aramaic text that talked about the historical figure of Jesus and his promotion of a raw vegan diet. And I was shocked. I had never heard of this possibility that in fact Jesus was a raw vegan. The book I found very inspiring, and it talked a lot about nutritional healing and was basically written by Saint John, the disciple of Jesus, about Jesus's healing techniques and that how he was healing with diet. So that was my first inspiration, and then I met someone when I moved up to a rural county in Northern California, and this person was, in fact, a raw vegan, was living that raw vegan lifestyle. And after just, talking to her very briefly, I decided that was the right thing for me. And I went vegan. I had been vegetarian for about 20 years prior to that. And so I went vegan, and then I quickly transitioned to raw vegan as well. So I started that, and I had always wanted to open a restaurant. I'd probably for at least 10 years prior, I had thought about it. Actually, at various times in my life, I had scouted locations for a restaurant, thought about menus and things like that. But I hadn't really um, gotten the actual uh, gotten everything together to start a restaurant, but this seemed like the right time. I had the inspiration of this book, The Healing Godspell of St. John, and I also had my own, testimonial about how wonderful I felt on a raw vegan diet. So that was the initial inspiration. And then I just started, to put things together. I found a location, and I started to put together a series of recipes that would be suitable for the restaurant. I found where I could get suppliers, food supplied, because I did live in a rural area. So it was not exactly trivial to get organic, top quality raw food delivered to this location. So that needed a bit of troubleshooting as well. So part of it was just me driving to larger towns and buying the food there. But we did manage to find a supplier that was willing to deliver. But I think the basic thing about the raw vegan restaurant was raw vegan was at that time was still pretty experimental. I mean, it shouldn't have been really, because if you think about it, animals have been eating raw food forever. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really what animals eat, is raw food. It is extremely unusual for any creature on this planet to eat cooked food. We are probably the only creature other than the companion animals that we feed
Yeah.
that actually cooks their food. So it is extremely unusual to eat cooked food. So getting back to the roots of what makes sense and what our biology suggests, and we've talked, I think last time we were on, we talked about physiological diet. We are
Yeah.
physiologically aligned with the other great apes. We have hands for grasping fruit off trees. We have small mouths for eating, small food that we can put into our mouths. We can't run very fast. We're not suited for predation. It really makes sense for us to be looking at a plant-based diet. And the raw vegan food pyramid starts with fruits. Fruits are the base of the raw vegan pyramid. And then above that, you have leafy greens. With the chimpanzee diet, for example, we've seen that there's about 50% fruit, about 40% leafy greens, and then about 10% other stuff on top of that. So that's the top of the pyramid, is the 10% other stuff. And in there, you'd have things like avocados, nuts and seeds, coconuts, that sort of thing. So the essence of the raw vegan diet, again, is based on a foundation of fruit. So again, this is something that so you might consider that a frugivore diet.
Yeah.
I think it's sometimes called. So, I think what I was really trying to do with the raw vegan diet was, create a healthier diet, a nutritional approach that aligned with human physiology and offered people a way to feel genuinely vibrant. There were almost no fully raw vegan restaurants in the country. So opening one wasn't just a business decision for me; it was a declaration,
Yeah.
I think it was a form of activism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
It was.
I have heard so from you that it was one of the first fully raw vegan restaurants in the United States.
Yes, it was. It was fully raw vegan, and it was partly a little bit by accident. And I have to confess this, because although I was very, very inspired by raw vegan, and I was raw vegan at the time, part of the reason that it was 100% raw vegan is because in order to get a permit for a stove, I would have to have drilled a hole in the roof for a vent. And I decided that was something I wasn't going to do. So it then became a fully 100% raw vegan restaurant. There was
Yeah.
no stove in the restaurant. And, I really wanted to create a space where people could taste what living food meant. I wanted them to, be able to have the restaurant experience that I was having at home. And it became a kind of I guess, I'm a chemist by education. So this became a kind of culinary laboratory where we're exploring flavor, texture, nutrient density without using any heat. any cooked oils or any processed ingredients. I mean, everything started with a plant and a plant food. The only thing is occasionally we did use some cold pressed olive oil. I didn't press my own olive oil, but we live in an area where there is are a lot of olive trees. And so we have very, very fresh, beautiful organic cold pressed olive oil in the area. So I was very lucky to be able to use some of that as well. And so that would be in certain recipes like hummus, for example, which traditionally
Yeah.
uses olive oil.
So
So basically, I was inventing the cuisine as I went along. This was, an opportunity. And a lot of times what I would try to do is find a dish that would be on a conventional menu and raw veganize it. So I became very expert at, uh, veganizing recipes that were traditional. And a lot of my recipes were kind of interesting because there was things like nut loaf, sushi, pizza, recipes that generally were not vegan, certainly not raw, and creating raw vegan versions of them.
yeah. So do you remember still what was the what was the most popular raw vegan dish in the raw vegan restaurant? Do you remember that still?
Well, yes, yes. I think it was our raw vegan pizza. And now I think that was partly because it was the least expensive on the menu, but it was definitely the most popular in terms of the number of orders. A lot of people ordered the raw vegan pizza, and I loved it. It was delicious. It was a dehydrated buckwheat crust with uh, walnut pesto, walnut and pine nuts pesto, and then uh, some various toppings that we'd marinate mushrooms, marinate um, onions, and then put a big pile of greens on top with some raw tomatoes, and the greens were all marinated in this delicious basil dressing that I made, a sweet basil dressing that was just delicious. So those are all things that you can find in my raw vegan recipes book. Basically, my recipes book is a direct take of my restaurant. I took the menu from my restaurant and I took all of the cards recipe cards that I created over the years for that menu, and I just simply put them into a book with pictures. So they're all restaurant tested, they're all authentic, and they're all delicious.
Okay. So what was the signature dish item from your raw vegan restaurant?
Oh, okay. What were signature dishes? Well, I would say, uh, you know, in the general concept was we want to combine, simplicity with nutrient density. And the raw vegan nut loaf was especially popular. That was hearty, savory, surprisingly satisfying without ever touching heat. Now, it did have a little bit of dehydration. So I guess you could say there was a little bit of heat, but it wasn't heat over the temperature of the sun on a hot day, which is the kind of the guideline that raw vegans use when they're dehydrating. They don't want it to be over the temperature of the sun on a hot day. So that was a combination of a variety of different types of nuts and seeds, and also portobello mushrooms. So the portobello mushrooms provided like a savory flavor, and then soaked nuts and sprouted seeds provided the protein thing. And I also, on the top, there was this delicious sun-dried tomato sauce that I would make. It was kind of sun-dried tomatoes and ginger that was just delicious. And then on the side, I would make mustard made with dates and mustard seeds. So it was a very, hearty, filling, protein-rich dish. And it was usually served with a side salad and with some of my cauliflower mashed potatoes, which are delicious. And all those recipes are in my book.
Yeah, and I put the links to her book, so where she was talking about in the comments in my description.
Oh, thank you, hon. And I also wanted to mention our raw apple pie, because the raw apple pie was another really popular dish. It had a crust made from nuts and dates, and it had a filling of apples chopped with cinnamon and nutmeg. And it was just a delicious, very healthy, sweet treat after the meal. And sometimes as people get older, they have a harder time eating apples. Well, the nice thing about this dish, it was very, very easy to eat because all the apples were already chopped, the nuts and the dates were already chopped, so it just kind of went down very easily. It was all super easy to chew and digest. So it was a great way to get a lot of fruit. And we talked about how important fruits are in the food pyramid. A lot of fruit very easily. And the other one that I think was kind of interesting is a more Mediterranean type dish was our sprouted hummus. So we would sprout all the chickpeas in the restaurant. We sprouted everything that would sprout in our restaurant. What wouldn't sprout, we usually soaked. So nuts were soaked, and all the other, like all the seeds and the legumes, were all sprouted. And that took some time. I mean, it wasn't like you could just, open your cupboard, take something out, and food process it. You had to, you have to plan days ahead in order to make your chickpea sprouts. So that was an important element of the restaurant, and it's something that required a lot of advanced planning. And I think the sprouted hummus would kind of just showcased how vibrant legumes can be when prepared in their living state. People don't often think of legumes as vibrant, but when you see sprouted, chickpeas with their little tails, and we also sprouted mung beans and we sprouted lentils in the restaurant. It's kind of hard to sprout some of the other beans, for example, like pinto beans and black beans and so on. Those are definitely more challenging, but we had great results with chickpeas, lentils, and mung beans. So I wanted to just highlight that those are the three that are the easiest to get started with.
Okay.
And we also put out a fresh guacamole. Now, this wasn't just guacamole that we prepared in the back and then brought out. No, we brought it to the table, and we prepared it right in front of clients. So it was kind of a fun interactive experience where they got to watch their avocados be cut, and the lime and the cilantro and the spices all came together in real time. And I always thought that was kind of a fun thing that we did at the restaurant. And I guess the essence of it was these dishes weren't just meals. They were experiences that helped people rethink what raw cuisine could be, and how their food could be produced and prepared for them. They eventually became the backbone of the Raw Vegan Recipes book, because customers just kept asking for them. They were popular and delicious, and very nutritious. So it was fun. And the other great thing was, I didn't just get to make this food, I actually got to eat it. For all the time the restaurant was open, I was 100% raw vegan, and it just transformed my life. It was absolutely probably the most healthful dietary path I'd ever taken.
Between which year and which year are you having the raw vegan restaurant?
Oh, the Raw Vegan Restaurant was in the U.S. was operated from 2000 to 2003, so it was 3 years. And at that time, raw cuisine was still largely unknown to the general public. So I did a lot of outreach and education and presentations and things like that. I did a raw vegan presentation at the local Seventh-day Adventist church, because I don't know if you know this, but a lot of Seventh-day Adventists are vegan, and a lot of vegetarian as well. So they were very interested to see this additional and healthful alternative. The other interesting thing was we had, in order to open the restaurant, which it opened in 2000, there's a gentleman by the name of David Avocado Wolf, traveled all the way up to our restaurant and gave a wonderful talk about raw veganism to open the restaurant. So it was a really nice way to get started, and it was kind of a fun party to open the restaurant, and we had food served and everything. So it was a great memory. I still have the video somewhere, but I think it's on VHS cassette. I'll have to get it converted to DVD to put it online.
Okay, I see. About the Mexican cafe, in which year did you started that one? And how did that come
Oh, okay.
to be?
Right. Well, I moved to Mexico, and I one of the things about going to Mexico, if you're a foreigner, is that you're not supposed to get a job down there. That might take some a Mexican's job. So you're really pretty much stuck with running your own business. So since I had already operated a vegan restaurant, I was interested in potentially doing something else in the restaurant business. And I also had acquired a bunch of computers. I've been a computer tech for many years, and it was one of my entrepreneurial businesses is to do. Used to be computertechnicians.net. so, so it was natural for me to want to maybe open up an internet shop. So an internet shop in Mexico was at that time because a lot of people didn't have access to the internet, didn't have computers at home, is you would have a shop with maybe 10 or 20 computers, and people would come in, pay a fee, an hourly fee to use your computers. And then they would access the internet and play music and play video games and do all sorts of, fun things on the internet, do research for their class projects and so on. And so I opened a combination of a internet cafe and a vegan cafe, a vegan restaurant with serving Mexican styled vegan cuisine. And so that led to my second recipe book, which is called Mexican Vegan Cuisine. I also have a Facebook page and a group
Yeah,
associated with that.
I'm showing it right now to the people that might watch it today or later.
Okay.
Yeah, you can talk further. Sorry, I interrupted you. You were talking so fast.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I'll talk more slowly.
Yeah, I know
Um,
you're really excited as well about talking
I
about
am.
this.
Yes, it's so nice to be able to talk about these topics. I really am thrilled to have an opportunity to talk to the public about these experiences I had. And those two restaurants and those two periods. So the Mexican restaurant, vegan cafe, was open from 2007 to 2010, and I had the opportunity to really, I, the first thing I did was I went around to the local Mexican restaurants and I saw what kind of dishes they were serving. I saw, the different styles and the different, flavors and so then I thought, well, okay, those are the basics of Mexican cuisine and those are what's being served at the Mexican restaurants. And so then I just figured out how to vegan. Remember, I talked about the veganizing process, how you take a traditional recipe and then turn it into a vegan recipe. And, then set up my menu based on that. So it was, a menu that anybody who was familiar with a Mexican restaurant could walk in and see dishes that they were familiar with ordering,
Mhm.
but they were all vegan. So, and I also had to, be a little bit creative because I had to use ingredients that were native to Mexico. I couldn't use the same ingredients that I'd been using in the United States. So, like for example, creating tacos and something that looked a little bit like ground beef, that was a difficult, a bit of a challenge. But they have this food down in Mexico that they sell at a lot of stores called textured vegetable protein, and it's basically these little crumbles that look like I think they're kind of blonde colored, beige colored, and those actually can simulate when they're flavored correctly. They can simulate a ground beef kind of
Yeah.
texture. So that's just something that we were able to do, and help create the cuisine. Then also we had to create vegan cheeses, so cheeses that would crumble, cheeses that would melt, cheeses that would give a similar impression to the cheese commonly used in Mexican cuisine. And then the sauces. Well, the sauces were the easy part because those mostly were vegan anyway. And also the things like the tortillas were already vegan. So there's a lot of things about Mexican cuisine that's already vegan. And it was just a matter of just taking the elements that weren't vegan and finding substitutes for those.
Oh, I was just looking up for a picture about textured vegetable protein, and I think we have this stuff in the Asian shop, something like that. Here,
Oh, okay.
I did buy some of that stuff in the past for some dish. Sorry, I interrupted you.
It yeah, it works good for as I said, for simulating ground beef. That was mainly what I used it for. It also can be helpful in soups and in chilies and dishes like that. It's basically defatted soy flour, and it's a byproduct of soybean oil extraction. So there's very low oil in it. So for anybody who's on a diet that is trying to cut back on oil and fats, it's actually pretty reasonable for that. It is a soy product, so if you have sensitivities for soy, you might want to avoid it. But it also lasts pretty much forever. I have never known it ever go bad. So, as a survival food, it's it's pretty amazing. I can't believe how long it lasts.
Yeah.
So it's something that down in Mexico, if you can't afford meat, you can buy the textured soy protein or textured vegetable protein. So it's a protein heavy food that's complete protein, and I found it helpful for simulating certain dishes.
Mm-hmm.
And we certainly in Mexico we didn't have the choice of going out to our local grocery store and buying vegan transition foods. Of course, here you can go out to the grocery store and buy vegan transition foods, but in Mexico that was not a possibility. There were no vegan transition foods. This was as much of a vegan transition food as you could get.
Yeah.
Occasionally, every so often, at a rare store, you might be able to find tofu, but that finding any kind of transition food was not possible when I was there.
When I stopped eating animals, so I remember in the past, in the early 2000s, that's the only vegan options. There were basically only one type of vegan substitute that we were having, and they tasted like a cardboard. I don't know if you.
Well,
you
I remember way back in the 80s, and my sweetie at the time, he was Chinese, and we would go to a Chinese grocery store and buy this little can of mock duck, and mock duck was basically wheat gluten. Now
Okay.
all these people talking about their gluten sensitivities. Well, we used to go out and eat gluten because that was a vegan meat substitute, and it was just kind of interesting that when people talk about gluten sensitivities, I'm like, ha. I used to eat gluten whole, with gluten.
Yes, I think some people.
So yeah, it's not. It's just something.
Yeah, I think some people are also some people say they are allergic to gluten, but they're not allergic, but they are allergic to the pesticides used on the gluten on the grains. I think that's also something sometimes.
Interesting. So they
That's
might not have, and they may also just be
Yeah.
experiencing, constipation because honestly, gluten is a constipating food. So if that's what their digestive disturbance is, and that's why they're reacting to it, then they just need to eat more fat, more fiber, more fruits and greens, and then put the gluten stuff right at the top of the food pyramid and the little triangle at the top, the 10% other stuff.
Yeah.
Instead of eating it as for breakfast, lunch, dinner, you just have a little bit of bread now and again. That shouldn't hurt. But if you're eating a big chunk of bread every meal, that's a problem.
Yeah, according to the statistics that I did read about it, only 1% of the population is gluten intolerant.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. It seems like that 1% that lives in California.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have some trend that they want to not eat gluten, and they think they're gluten intolerant because they did hear some people have it, or a celebrity was having it maybe, and they wanted to be like a celebrity.
Yeah, I, I am so not intolerant to gluten. I love gluten. Gluten is fabulous. The only thing is, it's a little bit constipating. So if you want to improve your digestive throughput, just make sure you're putting it at the top of the food pyramid where it belongs, in that little triangle at the top.
Mhm.
The 10% other stuff.
Okay, so next question. What was your
Mhm.
signature dish for the cafe in Mexico?
Oh, my signature dish?
Yeah,
Well, I couldn't really say there was a signature dish, but we had tamales and we had enchiladas, and there's a saying in Mexico, no es enchiladas. Like that means it's not enchiladas are supposed to be the easy dish. You just stick something in them, wrap them up, and stick them in the oven with some red sauce on top.
okay.
So enchiladas were the easy one. Now tamales, on the other hand, that is not quite so easy, and there's a whole process with preparing tamales. But those are delicious, and I just love tamales. Then there's I talked about the tacos, which we made, and then there's the tortillas. Again, all the tortilla chips, guacamole, mole itself, which is, I think, a sacred dish in Mexico. Cacao it kind of has a spiritual element to it in Mexico. I think it's called cacahuatl or something like that. It has a special name in Nahuatl, which is one of the indigenous Mexican dialects. And so, if you could just imagine just about any Mexican uh, dish that you're
Yeah,
commonly seeing on a Mexican menu, and that's the sort of things that we had at the restaurant. We also had burritos. Now, burritos usually are not found in Mexico. I have to highlight this because you go down to a Mexican if
yeah.
you're in California, you think every Mexican restaurant serves burritos, right? But you go down to Mexico, and there's no burritos on the menu anymore,
Uh,
unless they're very close to the border and
oh,
you got a bunch of people coming down from the States saying, "Where's the
yeah.
burrito?"
Yeah,
Uh,
just
this
like with
is not
Chinese. Yeah,
a traditional Mexican dish.
yeah, it's like this decorated for other countries, like with in some of the Asian foods that we associate with some places in Asia where well they actually don't make it in their home country.
That's exactly like that. And it's a bit like pizza in the United States, because everybody in the United States thinks pizza is an Italian dish, but you go to Italy and you try to order pizza, and they're like, "Huh?" They don't know what pizza is, or at least when I went to Italy, they were not familiar with pizza. So yeah, pizza is an American dish, and burritos are an American dish, as we know them in California anyway. The big, huge tortillas with a bunch of
Yeah,
greens and beans and rice and that sort of thing. That is an avocado. That is all a U.S. dish. Down in Mexico, they do not have that dish usually, but we put it in there anyway because we thought it was a cool dish, and we thought, well, why not? We'll include some burritos in there. But it's, I mean, I think that the, the thing about the Mexican restaurant, it was just completely different to the raw vegan restaurant. And I still, like the idea of serving salads and, greens and fruits and vegetables and, all the sorts of things that I served in the raw
yeah.
vegan restaurant. But the Mexican restaurant was a very different uh,
So,
cuisine.
okay,
Um,
so um, how did the experience of running those restaurants shape your um, view about health and food?
oh, well, I would say that they showed me that people are hungry for more than just calories. I mean, they're hungry for connection, meaning, vitality, and when it comes to vegan food, they're also hungry for, an ethical cuisine, a cuisine that doesn't result in harming other creatures intentionally. And just about any traditional cuisine these days is going to have, bits of dead bodies in it, or chicken menstruation or uh, the mammary secretions of cows. Why are we doing that? It's totally, completely unnecessary. I've been vegan now for 25 years from that time just before I started the raw vegan restaurant. And I have to say, I feel fine. I don't see why anybody wouldn't want to feel like I feel. It's amazing. I know vegans that are in their 70s, their 80s. We had a couple of vegans just recently die well into their 90s. That's 20 years longer than the average life expectancy. 20 years longer. And they just did a major study of the Seventh-day Adventists here in the United States. And I talked a little bit about doing a presentation for the Seventh-day Adventists. Well, the Seventh-day Adventists are very interesting because they have a range of dietary patterns. They encourage, as their perfect dietary pattern, they encourage veganism. But there's also vegetarians and there's also meat eaters. So they have the full range, and they do studies of 80,000 Seventh-day Adventists and their dietary patterns. And it's one of the best cohorts to be able to study, the long-term effect of different dietary patterns. And they found out that the vegans have the lowest rates of cancer. So this is a big study, just came out to December 2025. 80,000 people followed over time, and the vegans have a substantially lower risk of cancer. Well, cancer is one of the biggest killers, especially in the United States. And we have to understand that we are, every time people eat things that they physiologically weren't intended to eat, there's going to be an adverse consequence. And cancer is one of those adverse consequences. The other adverse consequence is heart disease. Well, that comes from eating too much saturated fat, and those are generally found in animal products, as well as a few other vegan saturated fats like coconut oil, palm oil, and hydrogenated vegetable oil. So most vegan dishes, avoid those three saturated fats, although they are sometimes present in transition foods, and people have to be careful. So moving towards the plant-based diet is going to increase your longevity. And that's the subject of another one of my books, Secrets of a Long and Healthy Life. I include a whole big section right at the very beginning on nutrition and how key nutrition is to supporting your health and your longevity. So that's kind of the, I guess you could say I started with a restaurant, but I ended up with a whole philosophy. and I have to say, really, I still resonate the most with the raw vegan restaurant. I really think if you're talking about health, that is the way to go. The largest number of people I run, as I said, and with your assistance actually, run one of the largest raw vegan recipe groups on Facebook. And I see why people are joining the group. As part of the intake questions for the group, I ask people why they're joining. And I would say that 80 to 85% of the people that reply to that question say that they're joining because they want to improve their health. So they have heard, or they're somehow become aware that the raw vegan diet is better for health. And I have to say, my own experience with it, 3 years, 100% raw vegan, and subsequent to that, high raw vegan, it is absolutely a cornerstone of good health, is eating raw plant foods.
What do you So are you, how much percent raw do you eat right now?
Right now, I would say about 80%. I still find it, interesting to have 20% that isn't raw, but I have to say, if you're really looking for the effects of the raw vegan diet, 100% is the way to go. I would find, when I was 100% raw vegan, I'd find that just one cooked food dish, one dish with, say, some noodles or some, maybe a piece of bread or something like that, and I would need to go to sleep. That's how much it, if you don't mind the expression, bummed my high. Because living raw vegan, it's like living at a higher state of consciousness. You have this increased energy level. You just feel so happy, and I mean happy like you probably didn't even know was possible. And anybody who's suffering from depression, I really think you need to consider the raw vegan diet because the degree to which it elevated my consciousness and my happiness was remarkable. And I also recommend it for anyone who is engaged in a spiritual practice, like their yogi teachers or yogis. Really, raw vegan diet really raised your vibration, got you more in tune with your spiritual self, and it was just a truly transformative diet. Also, I lost 40 pounds in
Oh,
about 3 months, and I don't know really of any other diet where you can lose 40 pounds in 3 months, other than perhaps not eating at all. But it was remarkable how quickly the weight got off, all the belly fat, all the what's that called? The uh, the I guess is the stuff that looks like orange peel on your thighs. I can't remember the actual term for
yeah.
it. Um, but
Uh,
it's like a form of subcutaneous deposits that all went away. So
yeah, I think what
your body just slims down and you become lithe and alive, and the energy levels, because you're not carrying around all that excess weight that you don't need, were remarkable. I felt like a bounding deer, and I would go on hikes, and I'd have all this energy and all this stamina. Really,
salute.
it was just amazing. I was
Yeah,
thrilled with the impact
yeah.
on my body, on my psyche, on my conscience, really, because I was eating the foods I was supposed to be eating, that I was physiologically adapted to eat, that as a scientist, I felt really defined what my diet should be, and I wasn't harming other creatures intentionally. I really love animals. I really do. I live with them. I appreciate them. I do my best to rescue them when they need help. I even go out to factory farms and support others in rescuing animals from factory farms. I mean,
Okay,
I'm
so,
an
so,
animal rights activist as well as a vegan.
so
So, for me, having that clear conscience was really important. Made me feel so much better.
yes. So, what you were talking about was it cellulose?
Oh,
Cellulose?
cellulose. Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I was talking about. The cellulose. Thank
Somebody
you.
in the chat was asking that. A friend that I
Oh,
make this a few weeks ago.
oh, great. They gave you the right answer there.
Yeah.
Yes, cellulose. That's what I was talking about. That orange peel stuff. Yeah, got rid of all of that. Oh, in fact, the greatest thing was the belly fat, because belly fat, once it accumulates, it's really hard to get rid of. But I got this beautiful, you know, no fat belly. It was beautiful. I really really liked what it did to my body, and I loved what it did to my consciousness. I loved what it did to my conscience. Really couldn't recommend anything to be uh, better than that.
Okay. So, what advice do you give to some people, someone that wants to open a vegan restaurant today?
Hmm. Well, I was there as a pioneer. So these days, the landscape is a lot more crowded. There's more vegan restaurants. I mean, I would definitely start out with your why. Why are you doing it? Is this a form of activism for you? Are you looking to share, beautiful vegan food? Is this a vanity business? Are you just wanting to, have fun doing, operating a business? Um, I do think you need a clear identity with what you're trying to do. And don't try to please everyone. Make sure that first and foremost you are okay with what you're putting out there. That it is a reflection of you and your consciousness. And for me, the Raw Vegan Restaurant was certainly that. That's what I wanted to put out. It was the perfect, most pure, beautiful restaurant I could possibly think of putting out. And that was my dream. Now, as a business, if I had catered for cooked, people who wanted to eat cooked food, I could have had more customers. Certainly, there was no question about that. So at the end of the day, I wouldn't say that it was um, a highly profitable business. It was a labor of love, and it was a labor of activism that has basically stretched over the last 25 years for me to raise awareness about the healthfulness of a raw plant-based diet. And so it's inspired a large number of my books. I have about 20 books published now in the vegan space, and a lot of them, including my peak performance diet book for athletes, my longevity book, Secrets of a Long and Healthy Life, my recipe books, my Why Raw Vegan book, which talks about the reasons why you want to eat a raw vegan diet. So if you want to get your recipe somewhere else, but you just want to know why you should go raw vegan, then the Why Raw Vegan book's a really helpful one. If you want the full scope, if you want why to go to raw vegan, if you want to how to transform your kitchen, if you want to know how to prepare restaurant tested recipes, then the Raw Vegan Recipes book is the one I recommend. But in any case, again, don't try to please everyone. Focus on what you do exceptionally well. So if you've got some really good recipes and you can make them really good, don't make something like blah. Make everything that you know how to do well. If you make a blah dish and somebody orders it, that's their blah impression of your restaurant. So make everything exceptional. Do it well. And try to build a community around your restaurant. Restaurants are part of a community, and they can also help form a community. I have made friends in my restaurant, who just came in the front door of my restaurant that I still have 25 years now down the road. So, build community. It's a social experience. It's not just a business. People come and you serve them. I always served all my clients. I think there wasn't, for when I ran my restaurant, I was the person who did the serving, and I loved it. I loved being able to sit down, talk with people for a while, and I also let them know that raw vegan food takes a long time to prepare. It is not fast food by any means. It is slow food. So this is the time to come and meditate and eat slowly, and I gave them books and beautiful music to listen to and everything while they were waiting. So it was more than just a sit down, eat and go sort of restaurant. And you decide what you're going to do with your restaurant, because it's a reflection of you and your values and what you're trying to share with the public. So again, build community, not just a menu, and be creative. Creativity gets you started, but consistency keeps you going. That means showing up every day. That means having edible food on the menu. That means having dishes that you say you're going to have when people show up, because that's the hard part is sometimes everybody orders the same dish and you're going to be out of that dish, or and if you're doing a raw vegan restaurant, you've got to spend 3 days sprouting. So you have to plan ahead, and then at the end of the day, enjoy your own food, because that was the delight for me of having the restaurant. That was the reward at the end of the day, is I got to enjoy my own awesome raw vegan food for 3 years, and I loved it. So have fun with it, and it's a form of activism. Open up a raw vegan restaurant or a vegan restaurant today. It's take your local cuisine and veganize it. If anybody's interested, I'm happy to consult with them. I'm happy to help them with their menus, tell them what worked for me, what didn't, and help them come up with some creative recipes that they can put in their restaurant. So, those are my best advices.
Then, what's the next for you in your culinary and creative journey?
Well, I have taken a brief break from writing books to work on my music. I've started producing music and consulting on music for about 10 different artists. And our objective is to, I've already, I think, put out a lot of, information about veganism into the book space. I think I would like to put some information about veganism and the ethics and kindness and compassion out into the music space. So this will give us, I think, an opportunity to influence people on that level as well. I think for too long, music has been taken over by the dark side. We've had this tremendous outpouring of negativity into the airwaves by negative music. And I think it's time to start counteracting that with positive music, music about love, compassion, kindness to other creatures. And I also consulted recently with a wonderful artist by the name of Lady Peace, who has put out an album that I helped inspire called Liberation. And this is a book, sorry, not a book, an album inspired by my work with the animal rights movement. And it's a very, very touching album. I actually, even though I would like everybody to listen to it, I have to let you know that if you care a lot about animals, it may make you a little sad, but I hope it makes you motivated, because there's a lot of sadness out there, a lot of creatures living in very, very, very sad, unfortunate, and then being killed in horrific conditions in this world unnecessarily to feed humans, that it's just going to make them sick and suffer from chronic disease and die early. It's a huge mistake. And it's both an impingement on our conscience, it's an impingement on our culture, and an indictment of our culture. And it needs to change. And I really feel that very strongly. So, veganism is just a step on the way to animal rights activism, I think.
That was a lovely talk today. I hope you enjoyed this too. And so, next week we're going to talk about veganic gardening.
That's one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, me and her both do have some experience with gardening. I have my own gardening plots that I grow a lot of vegetables on. In the summer, I basically don't buy any food from the shop, basically, because I have so many stuff from the garden. And also dehydrate some stuff from the garden, or pickle some stuff. We're going to talk about that, about her experience with gardening, with veganic gardening, and then mine too, and then we're going to just chit chat about that. If you like that,
wonderful.
We come and check the podcast out for next week. Do you want to say something?
Well, thank you so much, Vigani. Well, I just wanted to let people know that I'm exploring new ways to teach about my experiences and my life experiences as either a restaurateur or as a vegan or animal rights activist. And I'm open to workshops, online courses, future books, new musical collaborations. And, I just basically want to help people reconnect with food and their fellow creatures in a way that feels both ancestral and modern, scientific and soulful. So, if there's some way you think I can contribute to your life or to your entrepreneurial work or your vegan entrepreneurial work, just get in touch. My website is http://www.rawfromthegarden.com. So you can get in touch with me there and ask, let me know if you'd like me to help in any way. And thank you so much, Vigani, for hosting me on your podcast today. It's always a delight to talk to you.
It's always lovely to have you.